everybody. This is Patti. Welcome to the witching hour. Yes, that hour of the day that magic happens. And I have some of my dearest magic for you today. She is amazing. She is a dear friend. Not only is she a dear friend, not only does she teach at my school, she is a psychic. She is a medium. She is an animal communicator. She is a Norse witch. She is an archaeologist. She is a forensic archaeologist. She is a paranormal investigator and a cat rescuer. Let me introduce you the amazing Liz Legwynis. Welcome, Liz.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I am so thrilled to finally have you on. We met a couple years ago now, right? In the UK, at where did we meet?
Bosworth.
Bosworth. I knew it started with a B. They all run together at Bosworth. And I knew of everybody there. It's like, oh, her, fall in love with her, fall in love with her. So for any of you who doesn't know, tell a little bit about um, what's going on with you now. Again, I love that you're this Norse witch, you're a teacher, you're a leader of the pagan and witchcraft community, and you have that crime and police and all that side. Do they mesh together well, or how did all that happen?
Um, I guess they do mesh because I'm always looking for answers. So it's a case
Mm,
of not jumping to the conclusion. I think a lot of paranormal investigators and witches make the assumption that things are paranormal. But from my forensic science background, I'm always looking for a rational explanation before I look for something paranormal. So it does mesh really well. And I guess investigative wise, taking things methodically fits in with the practice of witchcraft as well, taking things
that's
one step at a time.
that is beautiful. How much do they? I understand how they could really help each other. How much, whether you on intentional or not, like if you're on a crime scene investigation, not even just a paranormal investigation, how much on a say a crime scene, how much does your psychic ability take into it? That
Yeah, not as much as you'd think, to be honest. I think because
really,
a lot of the crime scenes, it's too soon, it's too recent. So anybody who's passed, it's
it's
very
too.
much um, too quick for the soul to be there. So everybody says, "Well, have you come across things at crime scenes?" And no, there's only one I remember, and that was at an old cathedral, and that
Mm,
was very spooky. But that wasn't anything to do with the gentleman who passed at the scene. It was the whole ambience of the place. So that was a little different. But I think a lot of investigators, a lot of police officers will talk about using their gut instinct,
yeah.
and I think that's basically psychic instinct. I don't think that is anything paranormal. It's just kind of accepted that everybody who's an investigator from whatever field, there's a certain amount of gut instinct, and I think that works in everyday life as well.
I agree wholeheartedly. And yeah, that's a safe word for them. Not that
Yeah.
they're using not even intuition, it's that gut.
Yes.
You know, for
Yes.
a good old cop. So on your magical path, on your beautiful witchy path, again, one of our best amazing teachers at University Magicus, how did you end up on a Norse path? Is that your background or how did
It's, I guess it comes from my DNA. I've recently done my DNA again, looking at the investigative side, looking for a reason behind why I've fallen into the Norse path. I did my DNA recently and discovered that there's an awful lot of Norse background from both sides of family, my mother and my father's side. Their ancestors come from different parts of Scandinavia. So my dad's side is Norman, um, who were from France. They invaded in 1066, and they were actually originated from Denmark and Norway. They were Norse Vikings that went to France, and then they invaded France to England. From my mother's side, they were Danish and Swedish and Norwegian, and they came across to northern Britain. So from both sides of the family, I've got the Viking influence, but there's a lot of Anglo-Saxon Germanic in me as well, which is where I started the path. And if you look back at the origins of the Norse pagan, it intermeshes with the Anglo-Saxon. It's very Germanic. They've got Odin and Woden. They're the same. They're the same god, basically.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, that is not my path, but the little I know of it, it's magical and beautiful and ah. So one thing I do want to talk about, I'm excited to talk about because I get to see you live very, very soon. You have started a tour company, a very magical tour company, Phantasm Tours. So what are we doing?
We're exploring, looking at myths and legends, and there's a lot of that in the UK. So England, Wales, which is the first tour, Scotland, hopefully in the future, and Ireland. There's all sorts of tours about witchcraft and magic and small folk and dragons, and that's come down through the ages, from the Middle Ages and before. So I wanted to use my skills as a teacher and as an archaeologist and put together something that has its roots in storytelling. To go to a site and tell a story brings the story to life, I think. Plus, bringing in the magical aspect, so stone circles, doing rituals, bringing in the witchcraft, and also looking at paranormal investigations. Can we use magic? Can we use, I mean, you do it so well, looking at bringing people from the past to life, going to these old buildings that we're so lucky to have in the UK.
Yeah, no, I am excited. And this is September. Anyone can join us. Please join us. Phantasm Tours. And to me, I mean, hopefully it's not once in a lifetime. Hope it becomes a regular thing that we do. But for right now, you with your background and your magic and what you do, and me with mine going to the UK, this for somebody could be a once in a lifetime first thing that could change everything. That's how I see it, as I get to discover the world. And yeah, for all of my fellow US folks, if you haven't getting to the UK, we don't have anything old here. We just don't. You know, back east we get a little bit old, but out west the oldest thing we have is a cowboy town. As soon as you cross the pond over there, we go back thousands of years, and it spirits are different, energy is different, everything is different. So I highly recommend anybody, whether you've done it or not, see if you can join us. And they can
And
go to
it's dead
Phantasm Tours,
easy.
right? It's
Yes, it's dead easy because we're picking up from Birmingham International Airport. So I've got an agreement with a hotel next door that runs a shuttle system from the airport to the hotel. So we'll pick you up from the hotel. We'll take you on an amazing tour through 5,500 years worth of history, and then drop you straight back at the airport, pretty much. So it's dead easy to get to as well.
yeah, I can't wait. I'm packing my bags. I haven't unpacked from the last trip yet, but I'm packing my bags now. Again, because you will feel the magic there. Well, you were talking about the wee folk a second ago, and I know Ireland is not the UK, is not England, but in my experience over there, not that it's a bigger respect for the Fey world, but there's a bigger fear than we have in the US. Is that true in your cosmology and belief system? We just go fairies, and you're like fairies, or is that just Ireland?
Um, I think modern psyche, I guess, it's a little bit less accepted in England than there is in Ireland, because Christianity's kind of wiped that out a little bit more in England. England is very much kind of like, here's a stone, so therefore it is, but you can't see the small folk, so they maybe don't exist. But there's more and more people I've found recently. When I first started on my path, telling somebody I had fairies at the bottom of my garden was more likely to get me locked up than anything else. But nowadays, you tell somebody I've got fairies at the bottom of my garden, and they say, oh, so that's what it is. Those are the little lights I see dancing around on a summer's evening, or I've had an experience, or I've had things moved in my house and I think it might be one of the house elves, or I think the intelligence is changing. People are seeing more things as possible rather than dismissing them because there's no proof.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think more and more, whether it's the veil thinning, the age we're going into, more and more stuff is being seen by people. That's why the paranormal, which we both do paranormal investigation, is bigger and bigger and bigger. It doesn't go away because people are experiencing it. I think it is the same for the elemental world. People are seeing people who aren't necessarily even in our world. My friend Chris Fleming, who's a well-known television, he's like got a TV show in your country, I think, something about houses,
Yes.
but he's one of our guys. He's a beautiful medium. He's a psychic medium, but he's not of our ilk and elemental ilk. And I remember when he was on my show, he's like, Patti, I saw a gnome and they're real. I'm like, yeah, they're real. And again, it's crossing over into just the regular world of things. So I think that's true. I think it's because we need it, because our little planet is in a little rough shape, and I think we need to put our view back down to Earth.
I, th- I think lockdown helped with that, because over here we were very much locked down. We weren't allowed out. So 2020 and 2021, we were very much in our own little islands, and a lot more people spent a lot more time out in the with wildlife, out in wild spaces, and not having the constant people around, the busyness, gave people chance to experience things, sit by themselves and listen and hear. And I think a lot more people came to the conclusion over that time that there is more out there than we see day to day, with the busyness and the mobile phones and the phones ringing and the TV on all the time. To having that time to spend just to listen, I think a lot more people found that there was more possible than they ever thought.
I think so too. And speaking of world, that's my little puppy Willow in the background. There's nothing I could do to make her quiet if I mute it, but if I mute it, because I'm working on my phone today where I usually work on my Mac, if I reach it, everything will fall down. So we're just going to go with a barking dog. But speaking of dogs and cats, I'm which you are like a major world-class cat rescuer. How did that happen? Do you work with cats in your magical world, like familiars and things? Or are you just a cat rescuer in general?
I've always had cats. My nan, my paternal grandmother, was a cat rescuer. So I remember growing up going to their house, and there were baskets of kittens in all the rooms. So I've kind of grown up with it. But I my first familiar wasn't one of my first cats when I got my first house, and I lost him unfortunately in 2014. I've now got 5 cats who are all rescue cats. All of my cats have been rescue cats, and I find just their independence, they have got an otherworldliness. They've got a different sense of consciousness to us. So I really enjoy rehabilitating cats. So, for instance, one of the rescue cats I've got at the moment, one of my foster cats, she had PTSD when she came to me, and she didn't take any notice of the world around her. And 2 years down the line, she's just starting to interact and show her personality. And I just find cats just amazing. Well, the Egyptians did so, and the Norse did so. It's kind of, again, it's opening your eyes to what's there, what is already there. You've just got to find it and see it for yourself. So I find it really rewarding when a cat that comes to me and is really shut down, hates humans, hates the world around them, to see them just blossoming, becoming themselves again. It's just so rewarding.
Yeah, no. And they see through the veil. There's no question whether they're the first one to look at. There's a spirit in the room because your cat sees them before even I do. I should have you as an animal communicator. I should have you read my insane little Gracie one of these days. She is she's nuts. She's great. She's 2 years old now, but my friends found her when my vet said probably 4 days old. No mama, starving, umbilical cord in a garage. And it was like for a whole month, hit or miss if she was going to make it. And she made it. But I think some of her marbles are missing. But she's sweet until she scratches and bites you, you know. It's I've never had a cat quite like her. She's agile and smart and a thief and all sorts of magical things, but she's a little nuts. So I'll
She's
have
very
you
low
read.
key.
Yeah, yeah, she's very low key. She's very low key. It's like and not Lowkey, everybody. It's Loki. She's very Loki. uh, so how does your practice, again, we know the world is crazy now, and then in my show's about how to get through this life and make it magical and great, and what are some of your practices, whether they're daily practice, your witchcraft practices, your anything else, that help you get through life in 2024? Do you have regular rituals or practices that you do?
Um, I I'm really bad. I'm a lazy witch. The only thing I really take notice of are the main sabbats, which kind of, I call myself a Norse witch, but there is Celtic practices, Celtic side of me. So I take notice of the sabbats. So like the summer solstice coming up.
Yep.
I also look at the moon phases. I'm very influenced with the moon. I always wear moonstone. My mother goddess is moonstone and amethyst. Um, I guess my main one is I trust the universe. I trust
Mhm.
fate. I listen to those little messages, that little voice in the back of your head when you're having a difficult situation. Listen to your intuition or the universe. And I totally trust that things will work out. If it's meant to work, it will work. You've got to put the work in yourself and do as much as you can. But if it's not meant to work, it's not going to work however much effort you put into it. I try and do little things like if I've lost something, I will use my dowsing rods, I will do spells. More of it is to help other people. I don't tend to do it myself. I don't feel I need to do spells myself very often, but it's more helping people. So friends will come and say, I've got 2 houses that I need to sell. What can I do? And I'll give them like little rituals. Um, I protect my house because being a paranormal investigator and a psychic medium, my house is my sanctuary. So the only spirits allowed in my house are guides and ancestors. And my house, the spirit and energy of my house holds itself safe. So anything within that space is safe, held by the house. And I think that's why I have good results with rescue cats, because there isn't the outside noise. The energy is very calm, it's very embracing, it's very peaceful. And a lot of my perceptive friends say the same as well. I can have a big party, but everybody feels at home because it's such a safe space. So I guess those are my main things that I do
Yes,
regularly.
I thought extraordinarily similar to me. I'm much helping others on a daily basis, much more myself. But that I think that it is, it's not that we're lazy witches, it's that we just live it. We live
Yes.
it. We don't have to go do it. It's not like if we're being in that moment and experiencing nature, fate, gods, all goddesses, all that. I think that's what it is. And I agree with you wholeheartedly about the home has to be your sanctuary. It has to be your safe space for you, for whatever you're doing. So no wonder I like you so well. Amongst 100,000 other things. So I have a big paranormal audience too, besides my witchy audience. What do you have going on in the paranormal world? Because besides, again, you have this beautiful tour company now. We're going to do Iceland next year, but you guys join us in the UK this September. So what do you have? You do events there in the UK, like one-off events and things too, right?
Yes, we've actually got 2 booked for the tour. So there's a couple of places that I couldn't resist taking you to. One of them I shuffled a tour around so that you could come to. Um,
Yay.
and the main lady who haunts the place, it's a castle called Craggy Noss. And it's a Victorian castle, not a really old castle. Her surname is Patti. So I was like,
Ooh.
oh, the coincidence just the universe just wants you there. So I shuffle things around. So we're investigating there. And we've got another place on the tour as well, up in Bakewell, which is in the Peak District. Anybody who knows the geography of Britain, the Peak District is an amazing, beautiful space. It's one of our national parks. So we've got 2 overnight investigations there. So I work with a team at Craggy Noss, and we do different things regularly. Like if they have a new spirit turn up, they'll ask me to come and get the handle on them and speak to them and see whether they're nice or whether they're angry or that kind of stuff. I like investigating new places, so I will investigate with all sorts of different teams and go and visit a new place to find out. I like to test myself. I guess that's the forensic side of me. The investigator side of me is I like to test what I'm getting as a medium. So going to a new place that I know nothing about, coming out with all this stuff that I could be making up. You don't know.
I don't.
And then for somebody to turn around and say, that's written down. You couldn't have known that. That's in my little diary and things like that. So I really enjoy it. I like to stay local as well as international. So there's a pub that I'm going to take the tour to that's in my hometown where I grew up. We're going to go and have our tea there one of the evenings, and hopefully we'll experience something there as well, because I've just recently been allowed to take tours there and investigations there, and it is an amazing space. I think originally it's 16th century, so it's a coaching inn. So these big stage coaches that took everybody on long journeys, they used to stop at this pub. And it's still a pub today, a pub, hotel, inn, I guess you'd call it. So
Oh,
yeah,
I
I
can't
just want to
wait.
share everything.
I know. I can't wait. You guys join it. Okay, so how did I understand how our magical path, the witch thing, the Norse witch thing? How did the paranormal thing? That is not necessarily normal for a witchy gal like either of us. How did you fall in? Were you seeing spirits as a kid, or how did you get intrigued into the as heavy as your parent? I mean, haunted magazine. We'll get there later. But how did you? How did this path find you, or vice versa?
It basically found me first, I guess. As a child, you get dragged off on school trips to old places, and my parents would take me to castles and things, and there would always be a room that I didn't like because it felt different. And it wasn't until I was in my late 20s, I guess, that I went on an investigation with a friend. Well, ghost hunt. It was one of these big public events. Myself and a friend from work went just to see what it was all about. And I was picking stuff up, and the historian and the medium on the event was saying, are you a medium? And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm just telling you what's popping into my head. I'm telling you what I'm seeing in that corner. And they said, well, you've got to develop it. So from that point onwards, the psychic medium and the investigation, the mediumship developed alongside the investigations. So doing the reading people, I'd done using cards. I hadn't interlinked them at that point. So doing personal readings for people, I was always using tarot cards. So using the tarot cards was the way I interfaced with people to do personal readings. But that was from the age of 17. Later on, doing the investigations, I was reading the buildings, and it wasn't until quite recently that I kind of meshed them together and went, oh, I can do them all together. My mediumship isn't about people or places, it's the same thing. So that was a learning experience.
That is beautiful. What is the most staying for the paranormally stuff for a minute, what is the most amazing experience you've ever had? Do you have one that you can go, oh my gosh, this happened, or not? Whether it's spooky or inspiring or anything
I
come to
think
mind?
it was going to Craggy Castle was very
Ooh.
much verification for me, because I always doubt myself. I don't know about you. You've been doing it for so much, but you always think, well, have I made it up? Am I reading cues from somebody else that's there or from the building? And I went to Craggy Castle with a group of friends who run an investigation team. And I sat there waiting for them to set all the equipment up. And I was chatting to the resident team lead. And I was saying, I'm getting so and so over there. There's a gentleman stood there. There's a lady who walks through there, and there's a child that walks. And he was just sat there like, and he's like, do you want to go anywhere else? So I was like, well, no, because I can feel them from here. There's like people in the room above me, and I've got a lady who's fallen down the stairs, and somebody who jumped out of a window, and children who are ill. And he's like, you can get that from sat there. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I can. I was like kind of scanning the building from sat where I was, and just that verification of I can do it. You always doubt yourself, and if you've not done an investigation for a while, you kind of go, am I going to be able to do it? Can I switch it on again?
Always. I'm scared to death that I'm going to get crickets. And me, and living in a TV world, all of a sudden you've got, a crew of 20 people and whatever they're spending to get you there and to be part of this. And I never know anything about the location, period, at all. I literally be blindfolded. I get on a plane. I don't know where I'm going except for the destination. And I'm always scared. What if I just get crickets? What if I just get crickets and not trust it? And luckily, knock on wood, the places are so vetted that, but I almost threw it away. Not too long ago, I was working with, um, they flew me to Memphis. They picked me up in Dallas from something else with Jack Osborne and Katrina Weidman on Portals to Hell before the series just ended. And again, all of a sudden, this thing flew by me and it was a spirit bird. And I'd never had that before. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. I almost threw it away. And Jack's like, what was that? What happened? And I went, oh, it's a spirit bird. I almost threw it away. I had no idea that was the whole plot line of the whole event. So I'm glad I said it because I almost didn't say it at all. And then who knows, they had gotten bird sounds on the thing. Somebody had brought this woman a necklace and disappeared. And the whole theme was about a bird. But we have to trust ourselves. That's what I teach when I teach mediumship. We just have to trust. But it's hard.
I I've found that the way out stuff is the stuff that's regularly true. Um, I won't tell you too much about it, but there was something that happened at Craggy Noss. I was like, no. But I've guessed the big stuff like that is really way out there, and you think, no, that can't be true. Tends to be the stuff that makes people go, oh my
Yeah.
god. And that's the verification for me, is there is no way you could have known about the bird and the connection with the bird. And I just find it amazing. And the scientist part of me wants to know what it is, which part of the brain it is we're using.
But aren't you finding as a scientist, science and spirituality are crashing together with with what science is discovering that magical people have always known and vice versa. Now there's a scientific word for it. I'm just
Yeah.
amazed.
Well, that's basically what paranormal means, isn't it? It's beyond
Yeah.
science.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about electricity, 200 years ago, electricity would have been paranormal. And now it's just, we flick a switch and we all know it's electricity. And what causes it? It's electrons bumping into each other, and it makes things glow. And
Yeah.
it's just, I guess we're at the forefront of science, and it's me trying to put that into scientific speak, to be able to say to a scientist, look, this is what happens. And I think, coming from a scientific background, being able to say, well, I did this, these were my controls, this is what I made sure that I didn't know about, and this is what I did to rule out anything that was a natural reason for that phenomena, is just, it puts it more into a scientific framework that a true scientist would understand better, I guess.
You're a scientist. So, yeah, again, to me, it's just amazing the mesh. So, how did you get into forensic sciences and crime scenes and archaeology itself? How did that happen? I just want your whole history because you guys are just love this woman. I
The forensics, I've always, growing up, I wanted to be a forensic scientist. From little, I wanted to do all the analysis and finding stuff out and solving puzzles. And I actually started a zoology degree and hated being in the lab 24/7. I just hated being in one place looking down a microscope. And I had to then kind of rethink what my path was going to be, and fell into archaeology, because again, it's kind of investigating, it's putting puzzle pieces together and looking at something you've dug out of the ground and saying, well, that must mean that they did this, or this was the person who last had it. And at the same time I started my archaeology degree, a new professor started at the university, and he did forensic archaeology, and I was like, oh wow. So it's a bit like the show Bones. I guess in America they're forensic anthropologists,
Hmm.
so looking at human remains, finding out the story of how they've become buried, how they are, what caused them to pass away, and all that kind of stuff is the putting the puzzle pieces together by looking at the remains and where the remains have been found. So that's kind of what I did. I haven't done it for a while now. Unfortunately, I had to give it up in 2014. I had health problems, so I had to leave the police. So, but I try and keep the same kind of logical thinking to the way I investigate, and the way I look at paranormal, I guess.
That's beautiful. Okay. So before we go, tell people what you have coming up, both locally for you, for anybody in the UK or where you are, and then a little bit more about our tour that we want them to take.
So next weekend, well, this weekend coming, I'm doing a Sabbat ritual. So I'm doing a midsummer Norse Jordblot for University Magicus. So that's on Saturday. Um, the following week, I am at Parameet Midlands, which is the Global Paranormal Network conference, I guess, from Saturday and Sunday. And I'm giving a talk about deviant burials, which are burials that don't fit into normal burial styles. So the East West Christian burials. So, what can we tell about belief systems and supernatural and superstitions from how these deviant burials were left for us? So, I always kind of try and tie in the archaeology with some kind of spiritual, supernatural aspect. And then, yes, the tour. I'm so excited. I have spent so long just driving around because I love going out into the countryside and finding stone circles and old churches and all that kind of stuff. So I visited all the hotels that we're staying at to check out whether they're haunted. So all of the hotels haunted that we're staying at. They're
Yay!
beautiful. Some of them are Tudor manor houses. Some of them are a little bit more modern, but they're all haunted. We've got two investigations that I've said, Craggynos Castle and Bakewell Old House Museum, which is again, it's a Tudor, so that's 16th century. We're visiting stone circles, we're visiting hills that look like sleeping dragons. We're going to Pendle, which anybody in the UK will know, it's basically the English version of Salem. So the
Oh,
Pendle witch trials were like the big witch trials. And I've got a friend of mine who's going to be a guide for us at Pendle Hill and Lancaster Castle, talking to us about one of the families who were involved in the witch trials.
oh,
We're going down to Cornwall to Boscastle Museum of Witchcraft. So they've got loads of artifacts that are all related to witchcraft, whether that's modern day Wiccanism or superstitions relating to witchcraft going back through medieval times. What else are we doing? We've got local legends, like there's one down the road from me. The legend's called Bella in the Witch Elm, and she was discovered in the 1940s, the late 1940s, and she was inside a hollow tree. So there's a legend. She's never been identified, unfortunately. There's
wow.
all sorts of legends about how she ended up in this hollow tree. Was she a witch? Was she a Nazi spy? Was she a gypsy? Who was she?
Wow. So you guys can join us for this. And how do they find us? How do they find the tour? Phantasm Tours, correct? .com?
Yes, yes.
Phantasm, if you can't
Phantasm
spell it,
tours.
PHANTASM tours.com. And how can people find you? I mean, University Magicus, universitymagicus.com or magicu.org. And how can people find you, Liz, yourself, social media, websites, and stuff like that? Anything?
Legwynis.com is my I guess, my mediumship page. So I do past life regressions, I do house clearances, I do paranormal investigations, I do tarot readings. So that's all on that page as well. I'm also on Facebook. So Liz.Legwynis is my Facebook page. And phantasm.tours.official is the Facebook page for Phantasm Tours. And Instagram, similar as well.
Okay, you guys join us, follow her again. Amazing, amazing, magical, smart woman. So thank you for bringing that magic to the witching hour, Liz. Thank you. Any last words you wanted to have? Anybody words of inspiration or anything?
Go with your heart. Whatever path you're drawn to is your true path.
Wisest words ever. Thank you.